JB Blades has disappeared from the repair shop, leaving fans shocked as they can't believe what's happening. At first, it looked like a quiet schedule change, but the truth behind sudden disappearance is way more troubling. This is disturbing. The beloved TV host who once guided us through heartwarming fix-ups is now at the center of a story that's so much worse than anyone expected. From whispers online to serious charges in court, the mystery of why he was pulled from TV has only gotten deeper. Lavinga treasured BBC show in unknown territory and viewers desperate for ends wars. But first, let's look at the man behind the controversy. Hackney. Beginnings. Before J. Blades found his place in the public eye, he grew up in a world where being poor wasn't a quick problem, but a constant reality. His earliest memories were shaped by the cramped, noisy feel-off, a government apartment where neighbors went through thin walls and money was always tight. Raised mostly by his mother, a tough yet overworked woman who had him as a teenager. Jay saw firsthand the stress of trying to provide for a family with little means. She worked long hours in whatever job she could find, leaving little time for rest and even less for a normal home life. His father was gone, making only rare visits. Jay has described this absence as a constant, silent hurt, adding to Abrakan's sense of family safety. This instability at home matched the wider challenges of Hackney in the 1970s Sand 1980 South, an area far removed from Thetrendy cafes and fixed-up apartments it would later become. Back then, Hackney was one of London's poorest neighborhoods, hurt by unemployment, bad housing conditions, and underfunded public services. Violence and crime were part of the landscape. Street fights, gang fights, and small theft were so common they barely got attention. For young people like Jay, learning how to protect themselves was as needed as learning to cross the road. I remembers seeing bullying on the streets and feeling hostility both from other kids and at times from the police. This constant feeling of tension made childhood unpredictable with means of play stopped by flashy soft danger. School offered little relief. Jay was a quiet child who struggled to keep up in class. Not because of a lack of smarts, but because often diagnosed dyslexia. Reading and writing were daily battles with words swimming on the page and instructions slipping past him. Teachers often mistook his problems for not caring or laziness, which only made his frustration worse. Bullies picked up on his differences, making him a frequent target. By the time he reached his mid-teens, giving up had set in completely. He left school without grades, and more important, still unable to read. Yet even in these hard years, there were sparks of being resourceful, with limited resources. Jay learned to fix broken items, make do with what he had, and see potential where others saw waste. These were survival skills at the time, but they planted the seeds for his future career in fixing and craftsmanship. In later interviews, Jay has looked back in his Hackney childhood as both harsh and shaping. There were struggles certainly, but also moments of warmth. Friendships in the housing complex courtyard, community gatherings, and an unspoken dearness among those sharing the same hardships. It was in this world, shaped by hardship, that Jay's toughness and caring began to take root, setting the stage for the man he would later become. Survival years. With no formal grades and still struggling to read, Jay Blades faced a harsh reality in his early adult years. His survival will have to depend on action, not papers. He turned to whatever work could find, taking on odd jobs that offered quick cash, rather than long-term safety. These roles varied from short-term labor to basic fix-it work, but each one taught him the value of not giving up. It was a mixed-up existence, yet it kept him going in an environment where steady work felt out of reach. It was during this period that a turning point came up. Blades began volunteering with small-scale community projects in and around Hackney. At first, this involvement was about staying busy and helping where he could. He moved toward projects that relied on hands-on skill such as fixing old furniture, cleaning up donated goods, and helping residents with small yet important home repairs. His hands-on ability and natural way with people quickly made him a trusted presence in any neighborhood. In these workshops and community spaces, he found more than just tasks to complete. He discovered the satisfaction of fixing something broken. Whether that was a chair missing a leg or a table worn down by decades of use. Working alongside others, he picked up skills that no classroom had ever given him. Problem-solving under pressure, adapting to limited resources, and creating something useful out of what many would throw away. This period also made stronger his connection to the community. While his own life had been shaped by instability, these projects gave him a sense of purpose and a role in something larger. Blades began to see how hands-on craftsmanship could bridge gaps. An old piece of furniture was never just an object. It often carried family history and sentimental weight. Fixing it wasn't just about usefulness, but about keeping memories. Despite his limited reading ability, he proved good at learning through, watching, and repeating. Each job completed expanded his confidence. Slowly, the man who had once felt left out in education was building a foundation of skills that would eventually shape his public career. These weren't polished professional years. They were shaping ones spent learning by doing, failing often, and adapting constantly. Though there was no grand plan at the time, these survivors planted the seeds for the rest of his journey. In finding ways to fix what was broken for others, Blades was sunk knowingly putting together Thefram work for his future. One repair, one conversation, and one act of community service at a time. First love and collapse. After years of trying to carve out a place for himself, J. Blades entered what he thought would be a new chapter of stability when he met his first wife, Jade. Their relationship began in the early 1990s, a time when Jay was still putting together his future through community work and small repair jobs. Despite his struggles with reading and a lack of formal grades, he felt he had found someone who could see past the surface challenges. Marriage offered the promise of building something lasting. A family, a home, and a sense of belonging that had been absent in his early life. But as Hismore making it tells, the marriage began to fall apart under the strain of money pressure, unhealed wounds from his upbringing, and his own battles with mental health. The split was sudden and devastating, shattering the fragile essence of safety he had worked so hard to create. Jay has spoken honestly. A breakdown left him feeling ESO. The bottom had fallen out of my world, tasing him into a deep sadness. In the aftermath, Jay's life took a sharp, downward turn. Without the stability of his marriage, he found himself without a home. He drifted between friends' couches, temporary places, and nights spent on the streets. It was during this period that experienced the brutal realities of homelessness, cold nights, uncertainty about the next meal, and the constant mental strain of not knowing what came next. In interviews, he's described loneliness as being more crushing than physical discomfort, a feeling off-bung invisible that ate away at his sense of self-worth. This was not a short-lived episode, but a long struggle that tested his toughness. In ways he hadn't faced before, Jay has credited this time with teaching him both humility and perspective. The experience exposed him to the challenge faced by society's most vulnerable, shaping the caring that would later become central to his work on the repair shop. Yet, in the midst of hopelessness, there were sparks of endurance. Jay lead on the same community instincts that had helped him in earlier years. Occasional odd jobs, help from local support networks, and a stubborn refusal to give in completely. He has since acknowledged that without the lessons from this dark chapter, his latter achievements would have carried less meaning. By the time he began to rebuild his life, Jay had lost almost everything in Jept, the belief that things could change. The Collapse of his marriage marked the end of one era, but also knowingly set the stage for a transformation that would take years to unfold. The lifeline, just when it seemed like a loud downward spiral would never end, helped Ari Ved from an unexpected place. Jay Blades has spoken openly about how, at his lowest point, it wasn't a celebrity or a sports figure who pulled him back from Thiege, but the quiet generosity of a friend's parents. They offered him a place to stay, not out of duty, but because they saw someone worth saving beneath the chaos. For a man who had grown used to instability, this stability was both strange and life-changing. There, home became more than just a roof over his head. It became a space where he could stop running from himself. According to many sources, Blades has credited this period with giving him the breathing room to start facing his struggles instead of hiding them. Simple routines, shared meals, conversations, and the structure of a safe environment began chipping away at hopelessness that had gripped him for years. The turning point wasn't dramatic. It came slowly through moments of self-thinking and the gentle push off people who believed in him. Instead of telling him what he should be, they reminded him of who he could be. That difference mattered, as he later told media, when you've been to Thabatome. It's the little things that start to lift you. One of those little things became one of his greatest personal victories: learning to read. For most of his life, Blades had hidden his inability to read, getting around it through memory, making do, and avoidance. But in his 30s, supported by people who refused to see it as a weakness, he decided to tackle it head-on. This was no easy feat. The embarrassment, the frustration, and the self-doubt made the process painful. Yet each small breakthrough in reading wasn't just about reading words. It was about taking back control over a part of life he had long been shut out from. Learning to read reshaped the way he thought about himself. The skill opened doors to new ideas, deeper conversations, and the ability to connect with people in ways he hadn't before. As reported in the Times and repeated in his autobiography, it also gave him a renewed sense of independence. He no longer felt trapped by what he couldn't. Instead, he was energized by what Heno could. By the time he was ready to move forward, the sadness that hadn't left him isolated felt less like an unmovable weight and more like a shadow. Could step out from the lifeline had done its job. It had just saved him from homelessness. It had given him the tools to rebuild from the ground up with reading, toughness, and the belief that the next chapter of his life could be written on his own terms. The repair shop rises. Jay Blades' path to television was anything but normal. His journey into the spotlight began with something far simpler than a casting call: community repair work. After his period of homelessness and gradual rebuilding, he became deeply involved in projects that combined hands-on skills with social impact. One of the most influential was Out of the Dark, a charitable furniture fixing workshop in Wolverhampton that trained disadvantaged youth in fixing up discarded items. His easygoing personality and natural mentoring style drew attention not just from those he worked with, but from people who saw the wider potential in his story. Producers first noticed him through these community projects, recognizing that his ability to connect with people went far beyond the mechanics of repair work. When the repair shop launched in 2017 on the BBC, it wasn't just an author craft show. Its format blended hands-on fixing with the saving off heritage, pairing skilled craftspeople with members of the public who brought in sentimental items in need of care. Every object carried a personal story, a watch passed down through generations, a piece of furniture tied to childhood memories, or a musical instrument that had been silent for decades. The magic wasn't in watching the experts fix items, but in the emotional moments when owners saw these pieces brought back to life. From the beginning, Jay wasn't simply the presenter. He quickly became at the heart of the show. His genuine warmth, ability to listen without rushing, and respect for each person's attachment to their item created an emotional bridge between the audience, the guest, and the craftsperson. Viewers connected to him not because Hugh is an expert fixer himself. He often reminded people that his own skills were still developing, but because he approached each story with curiosity and caring. His background, shaped by struggle and toughness, gave him a unique understanding of how objects can hold meaning far beyond their material value. The show's quiet, heartfelt tone stood out in a TV landscape often dominated by high-drama formats. Instead of conflict or competition, the repair shop offered thinking, patience, and the celebration of craft. Jay's role as a guide, ensuring that each guest's story was told with dignity, became a defining part of the series' success. For many viewers, he wasn't just a host. He was a companion through a journey of memory and renewal, making the repair shop as much about people as it was about repairs. As his career started torpor and takeoff, so too did his personal life, love, marriage, and conflict. Jay Blades' personal life took a dramatic turn in late 2021 when he revealed his engagement to Lisa Marie Esposan, a fitness trainer and CEO of Warrior Method. Their relationship had been largely kept out of the public eye, but when they decided to marry, it was presented as a joyful new chapter for both. The couple's whirlwind romance, moving quickly from dating to engagement, ended in an intimating ceremony in Barbados in December 2022. The event was attended by a small circle of family and friends, with the ceremony held on a secluded beach. In interviews following the wedding, Blades spoke warmly about his new wife, describing her as supportive and inspiring during a period when his career was busier than ever. The marriage, however, was short-lived. By 2024, Esposan publicized the separation on social media. In her statement, she claimed that the relationship had been marked by controlling behavior and emotional abuse. She described feeling isolated, restricted, claiming that the dynamic of their marriage had become unhealthy. While she didn't provide detailed accounts of specific incidents, her post hinted at a pattern of conduct she found damaging. Blades, for his part, did not issue an immediate detailed public response, but acknowledged the marriage had ended. He expressed regret over the situation and avoided engaging in a long public fight. The lack of an extensive counter-statement from him contrasted with Esposan's more open account, leaving much of the public discussion shaped by her version of events. The collapse of the relationship generated significant media attention, especially as it came at a time when Blades was off the BBC's most recognizably portrayal. The difference between his on-screen persona, warm, caring, and community-oriented, and the accusations made against him became a point of discussion in entertainment news outlets. Some fans expressed shock at the claims, while others held back judgment, noting the absence of supporting details. For Blades, the episode marked a challenging period in which his private life was suddenly exposed to public scrutiny, while the accusations did not lead to formal legal proceedings. They added a layer of personal controversy to a career previously defined by uplifting and positive television moments. In the months following the split, he apparetto focus on work commitments, charity projects, K-tub relives, keeping personal commentary to a minimum. The end of his marriage to Esposan was not only the conclusion of a personal relationship, but it also became a highly publicized conflict that was opposite to his image as the heart of the repair shop. It underscored the difficulty public figures face when personal disputes become mixed with professional reputation. And for Jay, those challenges were just beginning. Downfall, what began as a deeply personal crisis for Jay Blades. His marriage ending, amid accusations of controlling behavior, quickly escalated into a chain of events that would alter his public and professional life beyond recognition. In September 2024, West Mercia politicized him with controlling and coercive behavior toward his estranged wife, Lisa Marie Zabozan. The charge came as a shock to many of his fans, and BBC reacted almost immediately. On Thievery same day, an episode of The Repair Shop due to air in a primetime slot we've suddenly pulled from the schedule. We the network refrained from making a detailed public statement. Its action signaled a clear shift in how it would handle Blades' presence on screen. BBC noted that Blades was not a direct employee, but rather an on-screen contributor. An important distinction that did little to temper speculation. The archived episodes of the show remained temporarily available on iPlayer. But the absence of any further explanation from the broadcaster left public to fill the silence with theories. In the months that followed, matters worsened. Authorities brought further, more serious charges against them, amplifying media attention and public scrutiny.